The Philadelphia Eagles suffered a heartbreaking loss this past Sunday against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Sixers have been battling some COVID issues, but their young core have really showed how great their chemistry is. And Fast Five, all that coming to you on Sports Talk Philadelphia. Hello and welcome to Sports Talk Philadelphia. I'm your host for another week, Caleb Flieger. We're at a different desk today. We have everyone on the same desk. I have my co-producer Aiden Sosinski with me. Aiden, how we doing?
Doing well. Finally, nice to be able to be on the set with everyone at the same time.
And Mike at the big desk now. How you doing, Mike?
Good. Despite a heartbreaking Eagles loss, doing good.
And we're going to jump right into the Philadelphia Eagles as they did lose to the Chargers this past Sunday, 27-24. Where the offense didn't look too bad, it is where the defense struggled again. Jalen Hurts was 11 for 17, 162 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 62 yards rushing. A solid performance by Jalen Hurts. But Jordan Howard again had a very impressive performance. He had 17 carries total for 71 yards and 1 touchdown. And the rookie Devontae Smith, an impressive outing after he had a down few weeks where he had 5 catches, 116 receiving yards, and also 1 touchdown. Want to open this up for discussion, guys. How impressive was this offense the past Sunday? I mean, it was another week where they showed to continually grow, and they didn't take any steps back, which is a pretty positive outlook.
Yeah, no, this is the second week in a row that we've scored over 20 points. So I'm feeling really good about this team right now, especially offensively. I think that they've improved a lot. They're starting to run the ball a lot more, which is what we've been harping on them to do pretty much the entire season up to this point. They're finally doing it. And they're being competitive and winning games. And honestly, for a young team, that's something that's really important. For them to at least be in games, this is something we've talked about on the show a lot. It's so nice to see that the Eagles are finally being successful. Running the ball, Jalen Hurts is looking a little bit better, finally getting some of the younger receivers in. So I'm really feeling pretty good about this team right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we were calling for Sirianni the past 8 weeks to, stick to the game plan. And, that game plan we wanted to was, run the ball, pound the ball. And he did, 39 times for 176 yards. That's what we want to see. And the Chargers obviously don't have the best rush defense. But, they stuck to it. And Hurts was kind of, shaky in the first half. But in that second half, probably had his best half as an Eagle. And, it's just something to build off of. It was a heartbreaking loss. But, hopefully they can take that in Denver next week.
This may be a stat that comes surprising to a lot of Eagles fans, but the Eagles offense is actually averaging the most points per game since 2017. So I think that's a pretty interesting stat depending on how we've had the outlook of this season so far. But the defense let us down again this past Sunday, going back to their old ways in the beginning of the season where Justin Herbert had a career day. He had 32 of 38 passing. I mean, completion percentage above 75% again. 356 total yards passing, and he also had 3 total touchdowns for the day. The Chargers' offense did not punt the ball once at all during the entire game. And how worrisome is this defensive performance again? I mean, this is another week where the team has allowed their quarterback to complete for 75% of their passes. That's a league average of the whole season. They've let their quarterbacks complete 75%. And, I mean, that's never happened in NFL history.
Yeah, you can go first, Mike, if you want.
Yeah, I mean, the defense, that was pathetic what we witnessed on Sunday. I mean, losing Maddox and Slay early in the game did not help this defense at all. And the D-line, again, for how much they get paid and, just how touted they are and, just who you look on that line. It's not acceptable the way they played. And they have not had a sack in 3 games in the past 4 weeks. So, Fletcher Cox, again, disappointing every week and just one of the highest paid and talented D-lines. You just, they gotta step up, and they did not get to Herbert all day Sunday, and that's got to be different on Sunday against Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, Mike, I'm going to slightly disagree with you there. Yes, the defense didn't play well. Yes, they got no sacks. And yes, there were certain times that they looked just not good. But it finally looks like that Gannon is starting to press a little bit more defensively. And even though that Herbert got 75 yards, there was very little plays where I would say, okay, the wide receiver was wide open. The two plays that stuck out to me the most were the 23-yard screens that we allowed their tight ends. That's just ridiculous. I mean, you have guys like Fletcher Cox saying, oh, we're not paid to cover screens. Well, the two screens there are the ones that, luckily the first time it didn't do anything because we stopped them on 4th down at the 2-yard line. Second time, it ends up setting up a touchdown. So we've got to focus on our screens, stop worrying about the big plays because we really limit them except for a couple of times where Darius Slade just looked completely burnt. I don't really know what happened to him after having a great week with Detroit. But I do feel a little bit better about Gannon's play calling. We just got to start getting to the quarterback a little bit more.
Now, do you guys think, I know that a lot of defensive linemen, they have been underperforming, and Mike really emphasized Fletcher Cox, but a guy that sticks out in my mind is former first-round pick Derek Barnett, who, again this week, made another crucial penalty late in the game that pretty much cost the Eagles from getting the ball back again and having Jalen Hurts to have one of his first strides to go win that football game. I mean, that was one of the most disappointing things to me is that Jalen Hurts didn't have a chance to go out for that final series of the game and go out and get the W and show why he is a QB1.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Derek Barnett has just been a complete disappointment. I understand that it was his last year on his contract, that was something in there that we can keep him this year. I don't think we should have done it. I think we just should have let him go. But I definitely agree that I would have loved to see Jalen Hurts go out there with the home crowd, get our first home win this season, with him going out there, and it just didn't happen. But it is what it is, and I thought that we played well for the majority of the game besides just that point.
Yeah, sticking to Jalen Hurts, I feel like he's on the fence what a lot of people believe. They don't think that he is a QB of the future. Some people do believe that he is a QB of the future. But if you look at his statistics through the first 9 weeks of the season, he hasn't been bad. He has 11 touchdowns throwing, only 4 interceptions, which is one of the fewest among QBs in the NFL. But what's really impressed me is his rushing stats, the plays he makes with his legs. I mean, 494 rushing yards on the season, also 5 rushing touchdowns. Not a lot of quarterbacks can do the dual threat of being able to throw and also being able to create plays with their legs. So I want to open up for you guys. Do you think that Jalen Hurts, through 9 weeks of the season, has shown you that he is the Eagles QB of the future? I mean, you got to look at the QB draft class coming up. The Eagles do have 3 first-round picks possibly, but the QB draft class is very poor. There's not many veteran quarterbacks to trade for. I mean, you have an older Russell Wilson, but do you really want to sacrifice 3 young talents that you can get on defensive end versus trading for a guy like Russell Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Hurts has done enough to prove that he's a franchise QB yet. I mean, but that doesn't mean that I'm giving up on him after this year. You know, if there's really no better options in the offseason with the draft, and if we can't hit on any trades with any of the other quarterbacks, then I think, you know, you got to stick with him for another year and see what class kind of comes out in the next year's draft. But, you know, he did show a lot of promise in that second half, and, you know, probably, like I said earlier, probably one of his best stretches in his career. And, you know, he was looking to throw first, and he was amazing in the run still. You know, he missed some open throws, the touchdown to Devonta Smith, he probably wants back. But, you know, I'm not totally giving up on him, but, you know, it's still kind of up in the air for me.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Just looking at some of Hurts' stats, he hasn't been bad, and I feel like we haven't lost a lot of games because of him. But when you go deeper into those, he's 21st in the league in passing yards, 17th in touchdown, and 20th in total QBR. By the way, the guy we got rid of, Carson Wentz, ahead of him in all those stats. And that's not to take a shot at Hurts, because I feel like he has been well. But I think it also shows that if you stick around with the guy long enough, he can improve. I mean, Wentz last year had one of the statistically worst years of any Eagles quarterback. And this year bounced back. I mean, again, it was with another team. But I do feel like with Hurts, if we give him time to develop, I mean, he was a second-round pick. We weren't expecting him to be, you know, what we thought Wentz was going to be. But I do think if we give him time to improve, he can become the quarterback of the future. And if not, he wasn't that high of a risk anyway. And I feel like we have time to wait with this team to grow and see what they can actually become before we decide to get rid of him.
Yeah, I do really believe that they do have to give Jalen Hurts time to grow as a player because he has only 12 career starts in his young NFL career. And if you look at many QBs at their first 12 career games, you look at a quarterback like Josh Allen, Hurts actually has better numbers than Josh Allen in his first 12 career games. So you got to be patient with a guy like Jalen Hurts, especially because he's learning new things every week, and he has shown the ability to improve every single week in and week out. So next we're going to move to the NFC East standings, where the Cowboys, the top of the NFC East still at 6-2, but they did suffer a loss this past weekend against the Denver Broncos. The Eagles fall to 3-6, Giants also at 3-6, tied for second place, and you have the Washington football team at 2-6 as well. Obviously, Dallas has the reins over the NFC East, like we've been saying the past couple of weeks. But there still is that possibility of a wild card for the Eagles because the NFC is struggling right now. Do you guys still see a possibility for the Eagles wild card? They do have the easiest schedule remaining in the NFL.
Yeah, so usually I'm not too optimistic about the Eagles when they're this bad this late in the season. But looking at their schedule, if they can win at least one of these two games against the Saints or Broncos, they'll be 4-7, playing 5 of their last 6 games against NFC East teams, and then 1 game against the Jets. So if they could at least win one of these two, I would feel pretty confident about them being a 7th seed in the wild card.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, just because of their schedule alone, our toughest games, like Aiden just said, are Broncos and Saints, which are winnable games. So, I mean, it's definitely a possibility, and they showed last week that they can compete with a decent team like the Chargers. They got blown out earlier in the year, but now we're seeing Sirianni kind of stick to a more balanced game plan, running the ball. So hopefully he can keep that up, and, I think this schedule and the next 2 weeks are going to be big, and, hopefully they can sneak in, but we'll see what happens.
Now, if the Eagles do make the playoffs in wild card, do you guys believe that the Eagles have to give Jalen Hurts another opportunity next year to lead the team as a QB1, or do you think that they'll lean towards trying to trade for somebody possibly?
No, I believe that you keep him in that situation. I think that he already was the starter this year, and he got into a playoff with a team that probably wasn't deserving to make the playoffs at the beginning of the season. So I do think that if they make the playoffs, that gives him another chance to learn the system that Sirianni has in place and see if they can improve upon what they did this year.
Yeah, I mean, it depends for me how they get there. I mean, if Hurts is leading them in every game and playing well and showing that he can play next year, then yeah. But if they get there just, by having 150 rushing yards by, Howard and Scott, and, I mean, Hurts contributes to that too. But, if he's not showing me enough, in the passing aspect, then, it depends for me. Like I said, I'm giving him this year. I'm going to see how it plays out. But, I'm still up in the air with him. But, it just depends how he plays the rest of the year.
Well, the good thing is there is another week for the Eagles to bounce back in the win column again, as this upcoming Sunday they do go away on the road to Denver to play the 5-4 Denver Broncos, where they had an impressive win against the Dallas Cowboys this past week, 30-16, where a few of their players shined, where they had Teddy Bridgewater. He looked excellent in that game. But the big thing was their run game. Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon had combined 190 rushing yards between the both of them against Dallas. I think that's going to be a key for the Eagles on Sunday is be able to limit the amount of times that the Broncos are running the ball, force Teddy Bridgewater to make plays with his arm and his legs. So what do you guys think are the big takeaways for this upcoming Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I think, they got to, what they didn't do last week is they got to get to Teddy Bridgewater. They got to get to the QB. Gannon's got to get back to that aggressive, what we kind of saw in the Lions game, despite it being the Lions. But the Broncos have a banged up O-line just like the Chargers did, but that obviously we see how that played out. But they got to get to Teddy, and Hurts needs to find success in the pocket, and the Broncos like to blitz. So if he can find that success, escape the pocket, successfully make the throws in the pocket, hit his receivers, if they can get open, I think that's the keys to success for them on Sunday.
Yeah, real quick, ready to go around score predictions for this upcoming Sunday.
All right, feeling confident. 24-17 Eagles.
Yeah, I think they squeak out a close one, 23-16 Eagles.
I got Eagles 17-10. I think they're going to bounce back in the win column, but I do believe it's going to be a lower scoring game than usual. But that's all we have for the Eagles this week. We're going to bounce to the Sixers now, as they've had they're 8-4 now in the season. They've looked very impressive in these past few games because they've had a lot of COVID issues, actually, where Joel Embiid was just placed on the COVID-19 list. They also have Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle on that list, where 3 of your best players are now on the COVID-19 list, not able to play. But the Sixers have been impressive while they've been shorthanded, as a lot of their young stars and new acquisitions have showed out while the big three have been gone. You have Tyrese Maxey over the last 4 games, 19 points per game, 5.5 assists, 5.5 rebounds, while only having 2 turnovers in those first 4 games. And you also have to look at Andre Drummond, 3 games as a starter right now, 15 points per game, 20 rebounds per game, 4 assists, and 2 steals per game. I mean, how important has Andre Drummond and Tyrese Maxey been to this Sixers team while they've been losing Joel Embiid, Matisse Thybulle, and Tobias Harris?
Yeah, both of them have just been absolutely huge. I mean, we wanted Maxey to be the starter when Ben Simmons said that he kind of wasn't coming back. and he's really stepped into that role as a starting point guard, someone who we needed him to score points. He's been really doing that for us. Did that last year in that Denver game where the Sixers also shorthanded and scored 40 points in like one of his first starts ever. So he's someone that is prone to doing this. And also getting Drummond, when we lost Dwight Howard as our backup center, we really need someone to step in. Drummond has done that and more. Clearly he was a star in Detroit, but he's really fell into that role as the backup center, but willing to start and score points when we need him to.
Yeah, I mean, Maxey is, started with Maxey. He's got a potential to be a star and even more in this league, multiple-time All-Star. And, I mean, he just turned 21 years old. He's young and he's playing like a vet. He's stepping in there and, stepping in for Simmons, who doesn't want to play. And he's playing, I think he's averaging like 40 minutes in the past week that he's played. So he's playing an insane amount of minutes and, getting the Drummond. He's a legit starting center in this league, and he's perfect for, Embiid when, obviously the COVID protocols, when he's out and we know, injuries with him. But even, when Embiid's starting, just as a backup center, he's a legit starting center in this league and he's a rebounding machine. And, I'm glad we got him and we'll see what happens next year because he is on the vet minimum. So I'm sure somebody will give him some money if he keeps playing like this, but I'm glad that he's on our team for now.
Yeah, it's a great point. He is on the vet minimum, which got to give props to Daryl Morey. That's just a great acquisition over this offseason to probably the best backup center that Joel Embiid has had in his career so far. One of the games I want to talk about specifically is when the Sixers lost to the Bucks 118-109 the other night, but they showed tremendous heart in that game where the Sixers starting lineup was Tyrese Maxey, Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz, Paul Reed, and Andre Drummond. But those statistics right there, Tyrese Maxey, 31 points, led all scorers. George Niang, another acquisition over the offseason where he's just been showing out and been a great piece off the bench for the Sixers at 21 points that game. And like we said, Andre Drummond, just a huge game, 17 points and 20 rebounds. And Shake Milton, a guy that was in the rotation last year for sixth man for the Sixers, he showed his scoring capabilities that we all know at 20 points, also chipped in with 6 assists. But what was your guys' reaction to watching the Sixers when they had, Seth Curry was also out that game, so they had 3 starters out that game, especially a key role in Matisse Thybulle off the bench, and they're stuck toe-to-toe with the reigning NBA champions.
Yeah, it was a hard-fought game, and, they played well against the Knicks also on Monday, shorthanded. They had Curry, and even Tuesday they didn't even have Curry, like you said. So, they fought, and that's all you can ask for. And Maxey in that first quarter, I think he had 19 in that first quarter. He was unstoppable. And when he drives and he does that underhand layup, he did that a couple times against Giannis, who's probably the best defender in the league. He's 21 years old. He's going to keep getting better. And, I think we got to talk more about, Daryl Morey and his signings, George Niang. Just like you said, a great pickup. And I think a lot of people are, kind of criticizing Morey because of the Ben Simmons drama. But overall, I think he's done, ever since he's took over as the president, I think he's been great. So hopefully he can continue that, and we'll see where the Ben Simmons fiasco goes.
Yeah, 100% agree with both of you guys on how well Daryl Morey has done as Sixers president. I do want to go back to that game, and speaking of the Denver game last season, it really had the same feelings where this is a team that we weren't supposed to compete because we only had 8 guys on the floor, didn't really know what to expect. We had guys that we hadn't really known about. George Niang, yeah, he's played well, but in that game he really stepped up. Same with Shake Milton. So it just felt like it was a really good game. I didn't expect the Sixers to even compete in it. I wish they would have won. But the fact that they only lost by 9 points in that situation, got to give them complete props for that.
Yeah, I think another thing that goes towards their performance is just how great of chemistry those younger guys have with each other. That is probably one of the few lineups that they've actually even practiced with as a starting 5, and yet let alone to compete with NBA champions who had no injuries that game. They had all their starters playing, and you were leading them going to the fourth quarter. I just think it's very impressive, and props to Doc Rivers. He's been getting shredded a little bit when they're not playing well, but I thought that was a great coaching performance, and he put in a great game plan for the Sixers to be close in that game. Some Ben Simmons news actually came out by Shams in the NBA. He said that the Boston Celtics apparently have trade interest in All-Star Ben Simmons, but the Sixers, in any offer, they want Jaylen Brown in return, and the Celtics may not be able to move off of that.
Yeah, I'm seeing reports that the Celtics kind of denied that right when that came out. Obviously, I think a lot of Sixers fans would probably do that trade in a heartbeat. Kind of seeing some Celtics fans' reactions, they're not too fond of that rumor. And I don't think a lot of people, really want Ben Simmons right now. with his shooting issues and then also just the way he's kind of acting off the court. But I mean, hey, if we can get a Jaylen Brown in return for Simmons, and we'd probably have to give up like a Milton or first or two, I'll do that in a heartbeat. But like I said, I don't see that happening, at least right now. But I hope it happens, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown might be on the rival Celtics, but he's one of my favorite players in the NBA. I mean, not only is he a great player, averaging nearly 26 points a game, 6 rebounds, he also almost got a NASA internship when he was in college and was once considered too smart for the NBA. So he's just someone who's just one of those guys that you want not only for his leadership, but also for his athletic ability. If the Sixers could get him, it would be one of the greatest trades of all time, especially that we'd be giving someone up that we really don't want anymore. I don't think the Celtics would do it. I think they'd be crazy to do it. But hopefully, prayers that the Sixers can get it done.
Yeah, you got to look at a lineup where you plug in Jaylen Brown, and then you also have Seth Curry, Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. You guys, they have to be Eastern Conference favorites, right? Maybe even world champion favorites.
100%, if that were to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we were talking about the Simmons trade that we wanted a point guard in return, but I think we have it with Maxey, so I think our focus should be more of, like a small forward and a wing, and if they can get that in that Simmons trade, I think it easily puts them, especially with, we don't have Embiid or Harris playing, and Curry's been out, so, yeah, I mean, I think if they can get someone who can contribute, I think they're definitely a contender.
Yeah, next we're going to move to the NBA standings right now, especially the Eastern Conference that the Sixers are in. The Sixers, like I said, are currently 8-4. They're in 4th place right now. You got the Wizards, who are shockingly 8-3. You have the Bulls, 8-3, that the Sixers beat twice. You also have the Brooklyn Nets, 8-4, and the Heat, 7-4. We got to be feeling pretty good about this, especially because we've had Tobias Harris not play multiple games. I mean, Joel Embiid been out, Seth Curry missing time, Matisse Thybulle. So, got to be pretty happy where we're sitting in the Eastern Conference right now.
Definitely, yeah. I hope that once they come back and we get our full team together, they get more time to play together, that we'll be one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. As of right now, we're still near the top, so hopefully when we get them back, we'll be good to go.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think the East is wide open right now. I mean, there's really not, coming into the year, I think it was the Bucks and the Nets that everybody was talking about, and the Bucks are struggling, and then the Nets, with the whole Kyrie situation, they're good, but they're still trying to work some things out. But I think they're easily, a favorite. And teams like the Bulls and Miami, I think they're good teams, but I don't think, they're going to be at the top of the standings when the season's over. But I think they'll be like a 4-6. But, I think the Sixers will finish top 4, and that's just with this roster now. If they can make a trade that makes them better with the Simmons, then I think that ups them even more. But right now I see them as kind of like a 3-4 seed right now.
Yeah, the Sixers, they do look very impressive, and that's with having a max contract player not even playing for their roster right now. So, like you said, Mike, if you can get somewhat of a return for Ben Simmons where it can improve your roster even better than it is now, I mean, the Sixers, they're sitting very pretty. Just real quick, who do you guys think is the Sixers' biggest threat in the Eastern Conference? You think it's the Miami Heat, the Brooklyn Nets?
I'm going to go Knicks just because they're in the same division as them and we've lost twice already, and that can be a huge factor later in the season.
Yeah, I think it's the Nets. The Knicks are good, but I think when we're fully healthy and we have everybody and we're clicking later in the year, I think we beat them in the playoff series. But I think the Nets are still, with KD and Harden, our biggest threat in the East.
Well, that's all we have for Sixers talk this week. Next, we're going to move into the Fast Five, and instead of This Week in Baseball, we're going to switch to This Week in Fantasy Football with Cale Flieger. So I'm going to be highlighting just a couple of the positions from this past week that really stood out and gained tremendous fantasy points. First, we're going to start at the quarterback position, Justin Herbert, who completed 75% of his passes for 356 yards, 3 total touchdowns. In most leagues, that was around 32 points in fantasy. I mean, that's just a great performance by our quarterback. Next, I'm going to go to a running back, James Conner, who had 96 rushing yards, 77 receiving yards, 3 total touchdowns. That's about 40 points in a PPR league. A lot of fantasy owners got him on the waiver wire through the first couple of weeks. I mean, that's just a great addition. He's having a great bounce-back season with the Cardinals. Next, I'm going to go to wide receiver, and I'm going to go with rookie Devontae Smith, who had 5 catches and 116 yards and a touchdown. That's around 22 fantasy points in PPR, so he had a great performance, and he's usually around a flex for people starting him in their lineup. And next, I'm going to go to the tight end position, where George Kittle, who usually suffers with injuries, he was out for a few weeks during this season. He finally came back off IR and had a very impressive performance. That he had 6 catches, 101 yards, 1 touchdown, and that's 20 fantasy points in a PPR league. And a defense I actually want to highlight right now is the Tennessee Titans, as they've been very impressive. As this past week they had 1 touchdown against the Rams, 2 interceptions off Matt Stafford, 5 sacks, and that's a total of 16 points. So just a great fantasy performance overall by the Tennessee Titans, and that's the highlight of this week in fantasy football. Next, we're going to move to Aiden, the best NFL team through the first 9 weeks of the NFL season.
Definitely has to be the Arizona Cardinals. So far, their only losses to the Packers. Last week, had a couple guys injured, especially at the quarterback position with Kyler Murray out. Still went into the 49ers, beat them. You saw Colt McCoy, who I didn't even know was still in the league, had a great performance. James Conner, as you highlighted, had a great performance. So just all around, another great win by the Cardinals, and that makes them the top team as of right now.
Next, we're going to move to Mike, NFL MVP through 9 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's old man Tom Brady. 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 2,600 passing yards, and he's got the Bucs at 6-2 again. I mean, this is a 44-year-old guy who we're still talking about MVP. I mean, he's the GOAT, and I think he's got a good chance of winning MVP again this year.
We actually have breaking news as about an hour ago, Odell Beckham Jr., who got cut by the Browns and cleared waivers and officially became a free agent. He had his final 2 teams down to the Green Bay Packers and the Los Angeles Rams. He did decide to sign a 1-year deal with the Los Angeles Rams, adding more firepower to that offense as they now have Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and Odell Beckham in that wide receiver corps with Matthew Stafford. I think it's a great signing for the Rams, and I mean, obviously they've been showing that they want to be Super Bowl contenders. I mean, they traded their next 5 years worth of first-round picks, so why not go all in and sign Odell Beckham, who just gives you a better chance of winning, and I think it's going to be a great move for them. And the last one, we're going to go back to Aiden, an early college basketball favorite as the college basketball season just started.
Yes, I'm going to go with the number 8 seed right now. Last year's national championship, Baylor Bears. Yeah, they've had a couple of guys who have left, but they were able to get in a few other guys who were either on the team or as transfers. Biggest name to me that they got is James Akinjo. He was someone who played for Arizona last year. He's from Georgetown. Really was one of the starters there, and last year averaged 15.6 points per game, 5.4 assists. So he's just someone who I think Baylor can really use as a big facilitator of their offense. Have a couple guys last year from their team that were backups. So I do think that when you look at a team like Baylor, although that they struggled a little bit last year, finally got together at the end of the tournament, I do think that they could potentially win again this year, especially looking at that the Big 12 has lost a few of the players that they did at the end of last season.
I like that pick, and that's all we have for Fast 5 today. Make sure to follow us on our social media pages on Twitter and Instagram at LaSalle LTV. That's all we have for this week for you guys. We'll make sure to bring back the Flyers next week as they only played 1 game between last week and this week, but we'll have more Philadelphia pro sports coming to you guys next week. Thanks for watching.